Hi everyone, welcome back to After Class Coffee. My name is Natasha Kleinbach, and today we have a very special guest here. We have Miss Angelique, who is amazing at everything that she does.
Thank you. I'm a holistic beauty expert and licensed esthetician.
Yes! So I got to meet this wonderful woman at an ovarian cancer event where she was kindly giving facials to all these beautiful women, survivors, women going through treatment right now, and even people that are just there to support their friends and family. So what brought you into getting into holistic beauty?
Yeah, so gosh, I hit the wall in corporate America and I got really burnt out and exhausted. And I started looking around and really realizing that I wasn't the only person that was struggling with certain challenges. Now, the other thing that I became aware of too is I started seeing an influx and increase in autoimmune disorders, cancer. Even for that matter, I have a client that's a kidney transplant patient. So I became acutely aware of toxins when my daughter was a toddler. Just knowing that even the cleaning products was affecting me, and then I started questioning, well, what's this doing to my dog? What's this doing to my child? And really started switching everything over to non-toxic, and then just realizing that everything that we put on our bodies is absorbed by the skin into the bloodstream, and that all these things add up, you know, over time. The other thing I started noticing too is that as I looked around at my smart, brilliant, beautiful colleagues, is that they started using Botox injectables and surgeries to really kind of mask and cover up the fact that their lives were tipped out of balance. So if they were tired of looking and feeling tired, they were really kind of putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And as I looked and started researching, I started realizing just that it's adding to our toxic load, and it's adding additional trauma and injury to the body. And I'm a chicken with needles, and so I was like, there's got to be a better way. And so I really developed a heart to serve and support other women like myself that want anti-aging and beauty, but without compromising their health or adding additional trauma and injury to the body.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And how many years have you been doing this?
So I've been an esthetician for 10 years now. I've been a wellness coach since 2008.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, I really love it. I love what I do. You know, it's really interesting because some of the clients that I have even the greatest impact with are those who carry grief. Maybe they've lost a loved one. So I don't just address it superficially. You know, it's great that I can do facials and pamper everyone, but there is the stress management component, the energetic component, and sometimes, you know, through botanicals and essential oils and many other things, we can create those energetic shifts, and then pampering the skin is kind of just the cherry on top.
Yeah. So in your opinion and in your work experience, how much does nutrition truly affect your beauty, your skin, everything that we get to see on the outside? I know that you are quite knowledgeable on the subject, so I'd love to hear what you think.
Yes, it's extremely important. Nutrition is the foundation of everything. You can skip over a lot of things. You can skip over, you know, creams and skincare and hormone balancing, a lot of things, but at its foundation, nutrition is the core. And I realized that really early on, just because as I became a wellness coach and as I started studying advanced supplementation, I then went into makeup artistry, and I had clients. I was custom compounding and blending mineral and botanical cosmetics at the time. I learned a lot about ingredients and doing that. And they would come to me and say, can you help me cover up this problem? And I'd say, well, we need to talk about what you're eating. Yeah. So then they started asking me, well, what about skincare? And so that's when I was like, well, let me get licensed and go study product chemistry and formulations and contraindications, and make sure that I'm making the right recommendations for my clients. But I spent 3 years as a holistic acne specialist, and a large majority of what I was doing was nutritional counseling. There are certain foods that we eat that are hard for our body to process. It overloads our system. It sets off a chain reaction in our body and can create hormonal imbalances. just a whole host of things. Even how we tolerate the sun is dependent on the foods that we eat in that season. You know, our fruits and our citrus fruits and things like that really help us build up our tolerance to the sun. We need all those antioxidants to help prevent free radical damage. You know, when I'm dealing with acne, dairy is one of the first things that we cut. You've got dairy, you've got sugar, you've got oils, especially processed oils and seed oils, and what's not processed by the liver, excreted through the bowel, is going to show up in the skin. And that's why we see people that come in that they're like, I'm not a teenager anymore. Why am I breaking out? And it's like, well, if you've spent decades eating a certain amount of food, then your body can hit its toxic load. And that's when it starts to express symptoms and you start seeing issues. And then some of the things that we're consuming or exposed to also can attack our natural collagen. So if you're concerned about anti-aging, you might be consuming some things that actually are breaking down your collagen. And as your collagen production slows, then you're going to have a higher propensity for wrinkles and sagging skin.
Doesn't sugar, as well as like sugar, simple carbs, and alcohol, aren't those like the big things that really hurt your skin and your collagen?
Absolutely, because what happens is we have this mesh under our skin that holds everything tight, and it literally breaks down what's called the fibroblasts in the skin. They become brittle, almost like rubber bands that have dry rot, you know, so they become brittle and start to break apart. And yeah, sugar and alcohol are the big ones. And I do have, especially one client in particular, that she would go home and drink several glasses of wine every single night. And I did a series of treatments. She actually lost a lot of weight, so I was focusing on tightening up her neck. But the first step was cutting alcohol. And if you see pictures of her before and after, like she had already started her journey and changing her nutrition and exercise, which that induces your growth hormones to help keep you youthful as well. But if you look at her before and after photos, it looks like in the before photo, it was her mother. And then the after photo was like her daughter. So it's incredible how the body has the amazing ability to regenerate and repair itself when you treat it right. And sometimes, even if you think, oh, I'm only having a few glasses of wine at night, it is in fact detrimental and it will age you much faster. But it's never too late.
So I know even myself, like I'm 23, I like to go out and drink with my friends sometimes, but I really just try to cut it back to only holidays and celebrations when I do partake, because I thought if I were to only drink on the weekends, I thought that counted as one time of drinking. I didn't realize each serving, like it greatly determined like the amount of servings you would have of alcohol. If you had just 2 glasses, that's like drinking twice a week. That's what they counted it as. I didn't realize that was what it was. And so I was like, wow, every time I drink with my friends, we're not just taking a glass or 2, we're doing a bunch. So I started cutting back on that, and I just feel like I don't feel as gross on the inside, if that makes any sense, you know?
Yeah, it can make you feel more lethargic, and really, like when you do drink, it can create inflammation in the body for up to 72 hours later. And like I'll notice even in photos, like I'll look a little puffy or something like that. So imagine if you're like, oh, I only drink twice a week, maybe like on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Well, if it takes a few days to reduce the inflammation from that, then it has a compounding effect over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at some of the questions real quick. But you're doing really good. We're doing good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So we kind of talked about that a little bit. What are some of the repercussions you have seen in how med spa and conventional medicine treats skin? So looking at conventional treatments for skin through med spas and just traditional types of beauty, what are some of the repercussions that you've seen? Did I word that okay?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Some of the long-term repercussions. Yeah. Well, one thing, I will say this, first of all, I used to work in salon spa, and I do have hairdressers that I've seen that developed autoimmune issues and chemical sensitivities just from hair color, working with that all day, every day.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to be aware of. But I have been seeing for a decade now. The first time I saw a client have a reaction to Botox was 10 years ago. And I had a flight attendant that she was very consistent about coming in for her facials, and she disappeared for a couple months. And so I said, hey, how are you doing? Where have you been? And she said, I've been getting Botox for 3 years and I had a reaction this time. So it sent her to the hospital. She had like anaphylaxis. And so what happened was nobody knows their toxic load. You know, we might have been exposed to things as a child, maybe through diet, environmental, all these things. So it's a gamble every time, and it's a neurotoxin. So we really don't know what our toxic load is. And so for her, her body just got tipped out of balance. It reached its tipping point and it said, I've had enough. And then she had a reaction to it. So that was the first time I noticed, and I was like, wow, we're really on to something here. And that kind of sent me on the journey to see like what else is possible. Over time, you know, I started seeing damage to the skin, thinning of the skin, lumpy, bumpy skin, especially due to product placement, placing product on top of product. And it's so interesting because just this last year is when MRIs started coming out where they showed your body doesn't really absorb it, you know, it spreads.
I've seen a lot of that with the filters.
Yeah, and I've been seeing it for years. Like even young women that I can see caught in the sunlight, you can see the shadows and I can see the deposits and the product placement. Some of them can be massaged and smoothed out. I did have a friend one time that went and had lip injections done and it was lumpy and bumpy, and I tried to massage it, but the product was too dense. And so I was like, you're gonna have to go back to your doctor and ask them if they can work with you or dissolve it. And dissolving it has its own set of issues because I was actually working on a project with a naturopath. It's a friend of mine. She was giving a talk to a group of doctors up in Canada. And so anytime you make claims, you have to cite your sources. So I was helping her with those resources. And one of the things that we found is that hyaluronidase that they use to dissolve these fillers, if it's a synthetic filler, then the molecule is encapsulated and it'll be protected from the hyaluronidase. So what it'll do is it'll attack your natural hyaluronic acid.
Yeah.
The result of that is then it leaves your skin looking withered. And it can take you up to a few years to reproduce your own natural hyaluronic acid to replace it. But then the perception is, oh my gosh, I think the doctor did something wrong, they damaged my skin. And it's like, if you really understand the chemistry behind it and the molecular structure, then you realize that's not necessarily the case. It's just how it functions within the body. Same thing with, with Botox. You know, I've been seeing issues with Botox for years. And when you see how it's developed, how it's tested, you know, it's not cruelty-free. You know, every batch that goes out the door is tested on mice.
Oh my gosh.
Every single batch.
Yeah.
And so the number of units that somebody receives in their face actually is 50% of that number is equivalent to the number of mice that died from that same dosage before it was shipped out to market.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize that.
And I always see like, I'm on Instagram, so I've been seeing such a trend of girls my age getting baby talks or baby Botox. And my thing is, I'm like, come on, like you're not even 25, like why are you getting that? But at the same time, I'll see all these vegan influencers that are getting it too, and they don't even know that.
They don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, and it's not something they disclose when you go in for a treatment. They don't talk to you about all of that. The other thing they don't tell you with young women that if you're getting baby Botox, you eventually can build up antibodies to it to where it stops working. So by the time you're my age and you start showing the signs of aging, it may render itself no longer effective, and then what happens is they have the impression that, oh, maybe my doctor is diluting my product, maybe it's not a good product, and they'll start bouncing around to practitioners who will take their money and go ahead and give them injections, not realizing that it just might not be effective anymore. They're now pretty much immune to it. The challenge with that too is we've seen it spread. I've been seeing for years like women lose like dexterity in their hands.
I've heard of women going blind.
Slower digestion I've seen. I have chiropractors that have told me they're seeing loss of mobility in the head and the neck.
Oh my gosh.
And then recently I saw a woman who went in to have migraines treated. So she didn't do it for beauty. beauty. She did it just for the headaches, and there's like 14 different causes of migraines. So it's about getting to the root cause. So they injected her in her trapezius, and unfortunately, immediate blurred vision, slurred speech, and loss of strength in her neck muscles. So she has to wear a neck brace. The number of cases is increasing. There's a lot of Facebook pages out there. There's starting to be Instagram pages chronicling this. There was a gentleman that was injected in his hand for tremors, and it actually traveled and put himself in a coma. And so when you look at a product like Dysport, which is supposed to be if you have lots of forehead wrinkles, they say that it lasts longer and it spreads better. So they say, oh, a doctor says, oh, there's no proof that it spreads, but yet their marketing says that it spreads better. And the biggest concern is, what if it gets to your most important muscle, which is your heart muscle? People don't think about that. So it's all very concerning. You know, even some of the natural hyaluronic acid that's out on the market for injectables is derived from bovine. So again, a lot of vegans may not know, or vegetarians may not know, that some of them, if they're natural, they're animal derived. So there's a lot of different things that I've seen throughout the years. And what's interesting is that there's over 20,000 med spas across America now, and over 2,000 open up every year. The trends are showing, because I've been watching at a global level, like Asia, Korean skincare is really taking off now. And they are very big on skin health and not doing anything that could damage your skin or age you. They're getting away from traditional injectables. They're doing some biostimulators and like platelet-rich plasma, which is from your own blood.
Those are vampire facials, right?
Yeah, that's the original training. They coined that phrase. Yeah, so which I think is kind of a scary name. I'm like, I'm already scared of needles. Yeah. I don't need vampires too. But so the demand for injectables, and I saw this, I believe, in New Beauty magazine, one of the major magazines recently, that the demand for injectables is down by 20%. So, and their profit margins are down. So what we're seeing is more med spas open up, less demand, and then the profit margins are going down, so it's less profitable. So I'm seeing this increase of mega doses where they're trying to make up on their profit margins. So have you seen that video floating around where they're like, how many units do you have? And how old are you? So they go through this doctor's office.
I've seen that, yeah.
And some of the women are really young, like your age. And then some of them are older, but they're talking 60 units, 100 units. I was like, oh my goodness. And then for them to say you need to come back regularly for this, it creates this tipping point where women start to lose their natural beauty or their natural appearance.
Because also another thing with that is the fact that I don't know if you've watched it before, but I've watched Love Island a couple times, and I remember hearing on Instagram how it was saying do you actually know the ages of these women? They're not in their mid-30s. They're in their early 20s, and they keep stuffing things in their face and injecting things in their face to where they no longer look like what they're supposed to look like. And what do you think causes all of these concerns for achieving this beauty and resorting to injectables? What do you think causes that for all these women?
Well, a couple of different things. First of all, did you see that video of the young woman where they were like, you look great for your age? And she's like, wait, how old do you think I am? And they're like, oh, you've got to be in your 40s. She's like, I'm 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's my daughter's age, you know. So what causes that is just the multi-billion-dollar marketing machine from pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies that really prey upon your insecurities to tell you you need to change this and fix that, and this endless strive for perfection. I years ago did a video about Snapchat dysphoria, and when Snapchat first came out, women started flocking to doctors saying, I want to look like my filter. You know, can you make me look like this?
There's a new problem that they have. It's always a new problem they have to fix whenever there's no real problem.
Right, and so I think the marketing machine behind it, I think social media plays, and influencers play a big role in it. I can't tell you how frustrating it is as a licensed professional to see influencers that sell tons of product, yet they don't have the credentials to really even know or understand what it is that they're marketing. They like it, you know, it's pretty, or, you know, maybe they're getting compensated for it, or maybe they do like the product, but it just, I think that we are in the age of information overload and product overwhelm. I think Sephora and Ulta are good examples of that, walking in. First of all, when I walk in the door, I'm just hit by all the fragrance. But second of all, as a professional, knowing and understanding formulations and everything, I look around at this sea of products, and you've got you know, retail specialists that are regurgitating what the manufacturers have trained them on, and I find it overwhelming.
There's like 200 different types of mascara alone.
I'm like, how is the average consumer supposed to understand this? And that is where I come in as a professional. I'm like, let's simplify this and dial it down, because I like to meet people where they're at. Some people are simple. Some people don't have a ton of needs. If you start basic and you're not stripping or doing things to your skin that are causing it to need to be replenished and to replace something, I mean, that's kind of the basic foundation. Like, let's pare it down and dial it back. Not everybody needs a 12-step skincare process, you know?
Yeah.
My daughter's one of them. I'm like, good hydrating cleanser, start there. And she's like, she likes her eye cream or whatever. But, you know, I think that we have, especially in the age of social media with Kim Kardashian and everything else, you know, it just, there's been this standard of beauty where they say, this is it. And it's like, I think that most young women don't realize everything is cyclical, you know, and even if you look back at like old Hollywood, if you saw a table that had like Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor, they all look distinctly different. And now we're living in this time where everyone wants to emulate one another.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little strange, because what you perceive as a flaw could be your own unique identifying characteristic that makes you different.
Well, also when you look at different cultures too, like a lot of women that come from a culture where they have maybe a bump in their nose, they might deem that as ugly if they come over to America. But from their home, from wherever their culture is, they might look at that as like the standard of beauty, to have that hump on your nose. And it's just, it's such a skewed perception of beauty whenever you start looking at it as, I need to look like X person's name. I need to look like this celebrity. I need to have the body of this celebrity. And it gets you so far away from who you even are.
Yeah.
To where at the end of the day, you look at yourself and you're just like, I'm so dissatisfied because I don't look like Kim Kardashian. I don't have the body of Kylie. I don't have any of these things, but you don't share any relation with them. You don't even know them personally. And especially with social media being so big nowadays, it makes it to where you're constantly seeing all of these really beautiful people, and the brain's really good at connecting patterns and finding patterns. And if you find that all of them have a very similar body type and a very similar face, you're going to start deeming anyone without that as ugly. And it's so vicious and evil and so skewed that we do this to ourselves.
Yeah, it's all an illusion, quite frankly. I mean, even, you know, I've seen where culturally, like in places in Africa, if you have a woman that is large and curvy, that is a sign of wealth and abundance, you know, because you can feed your woman well, you know? And so it was funny because growing up in the 80s, it was all about being thin and lean and, you know, long legs, and it was
aerobics.
Yeah, and it was funny because even when I first started body sculpting several years ago, they taught us the difference between you know, body contouring according to Brazilian standards versus French standards. Like, French wants a lean, like a tight and small butt, whereas Brazilian wants the apple bottom, right? Yeah. So even as a body contouring specialist, like, we have to learn the differences in the standards of beauty and consult with the client to ask what is the look that you're really going for. But you know, I think that with technology and social media and everything, it's also gotten us away from like, what is the spiritual value, you know, that we have? You know, when you look at it, you know, it's like being kind, being patient, being honest, being, you know, having integrity. Like, there's all these things that make us beautiful, you know, that have nothing to do with our outer appearance, our physical appearance. And I saw an interview one time with a rabbi that he said something great. He said, you know what? Back when men used to make love with their hands, meat was neat. He's like, it's when we started to covet with the eyes that we developed a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so it is just this whole, you know, feeding the visual, like being entertained. And if you look up, you know, even what is beauty, like Wikipedia is going to pop up and say having facial symmetry and being pleasing to the eye. Meh.
Yeah.
You know, that's like very superficial, you know, whereas it's like our true meaning of beauty, there's just so much more that makes us beautiful and makes us attractive than just everything you see on the outside. And then of course so many photos are modified, like what you're seeing is not even accurate to what you would see if you saw them in person.
Yeah.
You know, they might have texture issues in the skin or yeah, so I think we just have to embrace ourselves because, you know, there's a certain point where it's like, what are you willing to put your body through? Or if your body is a temple and it's carrying us through this life experience, you know, to have this human experience on earth, it's challenging enough when you go through surgeries and things for medical reasons, but then to add on top of that cosmetic procedures. And I've seen this influx in breast implant illness, and I'm seeing the issues with injectables. Brazilian butt lift, that has the highest rate of infection and mortality of any of the procedures. And it's like, at what lengths are we willing to go? And then I also have seen women that developed issues afterwards. So it's like if you're a perfectly healthy person and you put yourself at risk every time you go under, and then suddenly you're a young person that starts developing autoimmune issues and stuff like that, it's almost like opening up Pandora's box. And so often the root of disease is a disruption in God's natural creation.
Yeah.
We've tampered with it, and anytime we try to tamper with things, we often mess up.
Well, we see that with food. We see that with food all the time, where whenever we eat, if you look at people that eat traditionally all of like the traditional standard American diet, they usually have all of these health issues because they're eating ultra-processed, like 50-plus ingredient foods that can last on the shelf for 10-plus years. And the thing is, these things that are enriched or enhanced, they're not enhanced at all. They just took away everything that would make the food go bad and gave you everything that makes it last so long. And it really disrupts your internal system. So whenever you do that to your own body, it's the same thing. You're just disrupting it.
Yeah, and what I see in the skin is typically what's going on the outside is a reflection of what's going on the inside. So, you know, if you're eating dead foods that are fortified, that have no bioavailability to really absorb, you know, because it's all artificial, then you're going to see it in your skin. And I've seen it even studies with twins, you know, diet and sun exposure, how it can make a difference, and even putting them on supplementation. You know, we've got so much advanced biotechnology now to be able to do DNA repair and repair the telomeres and all of this stuff. And it's unfortunate because I love that we have all this science, but in the same respect, it's like we're trying to undo what we've damaged from all the other things that we've been doing. So it's like, it's great that we have this stuff, but it's like, you got to stop the damage and the exposure to begin with. Hopefully we'll be well on our way to correcting some of that here in these next few years, you know, kind of get some of those artificial, you know, chemicals and stuff out of our food and our water and otherwise. I mean, gosh, Europe, even just in cosmetics, there's like over 40 different ingredients in Europe that are banned that we still use here in the United States and lather on our bodies every day.
Well, a big one, and I talk about this because I work with Salad Master, but a huge one is like cookware, like the basic cookware. In Europe, you cannot find aluminum cookware. So that means you're not going to find Teflon cookware either, because everything that's nonstick will 9 times out of 10 be placed on aluminum. And in America, I don't know if you know this, but aluminum, you cannot feed a cat, dog, or any animals out of aluminum dish. But you can buy a pot made out of aluminum and cook in it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of laws out there that show that we actually we value animals' lives more than we value human life in so many ways, you know. So it's again, I'm hoping the tide will turn a little bit. It was very eye-opening because I just went to Europe recently, and just how much less expensive it is to eat over there, but the quality is just so much better to where I wasn't having the inflammation and the histamine response and everything that I have here in the U.S. with all these foods I have to eliminate. Like,
And you were in Florence?
no, I went to Rome and Tivoli.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, just being able to eat a huge croissant over there, you know,
Probably tasted a lot better
and
too.
drink the wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas here, it's like I would start sneezing instantly. You know, I started having kind of like an allergy response. So, you know, and then we lather so many products as women on our bodies as well, and you know, just. I think I realized probably when she was really small, just I was starting to get flu-like symptoms if I used chlorine bleach. I mean, body aches, low-grade fever, headaches, scrubbing bubbles made me sneeze, and I was like, if this is making me feel this way,
what is it
what's
doing
it doing for my
child?
dog and for my little one?
Yeah.
And that was just to clean the house, you know, not including everything else that, you know, we bathe in and put on our bodies. So it's really fascinating because, you know, plants and botanicals can have such an impact when it comes to repairing the skin and body, doing cellular repair, raising and elevating your moods. There's so many benefits to it, and it's like we've just tracked so far away from that, and made all this artificial synthetic products that our body's not meant to process, and our bodies are screaming, help. Please stop.
Be sure to tune in next episode for part 2 of this interview with Angelique, our holistic beauty expert and licensed esthetician.